Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine.
Dnipro was hit. Kyiv was hit. A small city near Lviv was hit, an industrial plant. And so it was, once again, these moments of that dance macabre of Russian missiles all around this country.
Joe. Little fucking Joe Lindsley.
Joe Lindsley is quickly becoming an American treasure in broadcasting.
Welcome to Ukraine Bank.
We've been hearing about the shakeup in the Ukraine military leadership. Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine. And Joe, what I'm wondering about is how will this affect the war, or do you think it will at all?
Hey, Bob. Well, good afternoon from Kyiv. It was a loud morning here and throughout Ukraine. The Russians attacked pretty extensively this morning. And so we had warnings at about 2 o'clock this morning that missiles were likely to arrive around 7 a.m. So you got 5 hours of peace. And I woke to the sound of explosions here in Kyiv. When you hear those explosions in Kyiv, you can tell when it's a Patriot missile from the U.S. Defending the skies. It's incredibly loud, but it's a sign that the system is working. And as you viscerally feel such an attack today, there are injuries and fatalities throughout Ukraine. An apartment building was hit here in Kyiv on the left bank. It was a 20-story building, and maybe floors 14 to 18. There's just a huge gap filled with fire. Hopefully no one was sleeping in those rooms, but it seems likely some people were. So yet another morning of Russian terror upon this country. And then even almost beyond, some of these missiles were flying extremely close to the Polish border, to the border of NATO and the European Union. And this was about 6 o'clock this morning. And we had reports that Poland had scrambled F16s to protect Polish airspace, just in case the missile entered. And so it was a very dramatic morning. Meanwhile, we have American Tucker Carlson saying he's being very brave by being in Moscow, but it'd be brave to be in Kyiv right now. And as we do, look at this shakeup, or this expected shakeup in the leadership. I mean, it's been something people have been talking about very intensely for several weeks. We still see no action on it, which is strange. And it is something that is on everyone's mind. But I think, everyone with whom I speak about this, including people in the military, they have great respect for the commander-in-chief, General Zaluzhny. But I think everyone also has, an understanding that, the goal is victory, and everyone is trying to be united in that. But it does require, there's different views on strategy. And so you need to have, to some extent, these debates. And a big question is, looking at the mobilization. And General Zaluzhny has said, Ukraine needs to mobilize more citizens to fight, or, to serve in a more active way. President Zelensky, which is probably understandable for a politician, has been actually reluctant to push for the type of mobilization that the commander-in-chief wants. And so this is a big debate behind the scenes. And a lot of this is occurring also, within the context of what kind of support will Ukraine get from the West. And, Ukraine has to prepare for the worst case scenarios, prepare for the reality that maybe, the United States will not send more weapons here. And just, you have to be smart about that. And so I think that's part of the reason why these debates are happening. It's an extremely difficult thing, because you have to project confidence and leadership, but you also have to do that while fixing things. And that's a very delicate spot to be in. And so I don't envy, President Zelensky in these moments and having to make such decisions. Certainly there's pressure from around the world, and something that is, sort of, we look, as I was thinking about Poland scrambling its F-16s today. The new Polish Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, he said recently that he wants Poland to have the largest, most powerful army in Europe. And that sounds nice, but then you ask the question, well, why should that not be Ukraine? Why not Ukraine, the country that's actually engaged in the fight? And so, you do start to see sort of self-interest, seeming self-interest of other nations, and sort of, hoping that Ukraine will hold on and keep the fight away from them. but without giving Ukraine everything they need to put a stop to this. And, as one commentator said today here in Ukraine, the Russians will, and I think we could say they've proven this pretty clearly, except to people like Tucker Carlson, that the Russians will go as far as they're allowed, they will push the limits as far as they can and even a little bit beyond. I mean, the fact that there were almost missiles in Poland today shows a recklessness. It shows that they're not afraid of threats. And so the world really needs to consider that. And there's always the flip side. I mean, again, it was a big attack today, but it was nothing like those attacks that we saw 1 year ago. 1 year ago from now, if there, with a similar weekly attack like this, it'd be very likely that much of Ukraine would be in a blackout. And that's not the case. There are some power outages in parts of Kyiv, but nothing like we saw last winter. So Ukraine is still incredibly well protected. But of course, Russia knows if they keep pounding like this, one day the defense supplies will run out. And, Bob, in this context, I was looking back at some of the history of how we got to this situation. And, we talk about the Budapest Memorandum, which I know a lot of Americans don't care about because it's from the 1990s. It was under Bill Clinton. People feel, why should they be beholden to that? But that was when Ukraine agreed to give up its nuclear weapons in return for security guarantees, and including from the U.S. But things got worse than that. Actually, in 2005, there was a bipartisan movement in Congress to get Ukraine to dismantle its nuclear weapons were already gone, but to get Ukraine to dismantle its other weapons, many of its weapons. This campaign was led by then Senator from Illinois, Barack Obama, and then Democrat, and then Senator from Indiana, Republican, Richard Lugar. They actually came to Ukraine to ensure that Ukrainians were dismantling their defense, dismantling their weapons in 2005. So really, rendering Ukraine incredibly weak. And so I think for people who say, well, what does America owe, this country, and even beyond, thinking about, stopping Russia, but United States leadership actively worked to make Ukraine weak. And now Ukrainians are having to, with some support from the West, of course, hold on against this massive enemy.
The European Union chief diplomat Joe Borrell is there in Kyiv also, and I'm sure he was thinking about Poland today. And I don't know whether you saw his post on social media, Joseph. He wrote, starting my morning in the shelter as air alarms are sounding across Kyiv. This is the daily reality of the brave Ukrainian people since Russia launched its illegal aggression. I don't know if it was timed to be when the EU diplomat was there, but that's what you described to us almost every day lately.
Yeah, I was actually very close to him at that moment. The same Joseph Borrell, top EU diplomat, and I think the timing. Who knows? Maybe it's also. I mean, it's very. While Tucker Carlson is, and he's trending on Twitter in Ukraine today. People are very angry at him. While he's there preparing to interview Vladimir Putin and saying that the world needs to hear the truth, in a country with no free speech, that country, which to me is the school shooter of nations, is unleashing these missiles on peaceful Ukraine, on international officials who are here. I didn't go down to the shelter this morning, perhaps because I've been in Kharkiv, where it's a bit more intense, and you do feel a bit more protected here in Kyiv because of the air defense from the U.S. and Germany and others. But afterwards, I was having breakfast with some people, and there were two women who work here. They come from other countries, and it was really inspiring. Whether it's people like Joseph Borrell or those two women I was speaking with this morning. Everyone was going through hell this morning. It's terrifying when you hear those sounds. You don't know what's going to happen. And still being cheerful, underslept and cheerful at breakfast and not afraid and not running away. And I went to a little cafe to get coffee, trying to stay awake mid-morning. And in the cafe were several women, each on their own, Ukrainian women, some reading books or on their laptops, listening to the band Gorillaz was playing on the speakers in the cafe. And so everyone was sort of calm and cheerful. And it's incredible, especially when you see women here who they don't have to be here. They could easily be living a nice life in Europe, and they choose to be here. And so in the face of, cowardice in Moscow, and then people who maybe are losing their will in other places around the world, you do see such solidarity and strength here, especially in the aftermath of attacks like we had today. It was Dnipro was hit, Kyiv was hit, a small city near Lviv was hit, an industrial plant, and so it was once again these moments of that dance macabre of Russian missiles all around this country.
It's so easy for us to forget what's going on there, Joseph. Thank you for keeping us posted. Joe Lindsley in Ukraine. Stay strong, Joe. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Until tomorrow. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Що сказав?
Well, which side are you on?
На чиїй ти стороні?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чиїй ти стороні?